Launch Director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission Director.
3,
You have permission
2.
to launch.
We have ignition of the RS-68A main engine. And we have liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket.
Mach 1, execute. And we have indication of spacecraft separation.
Good afternoon from Space Launch Complex 3E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in Southern California. You're looking at a live view of the Vulcan Centaur launch vehicle as it awaits its 2:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time launch window of the Landsat-6B mission. At T-minus 45 minutes, the launch teams began loading the first stage with liquid methane and liquid oxygen. At T-minus 15 minutes, the launch teams will begin loading the second stage, or Centaur, with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The teams are tracking no issues. The launch vehicle is healthy, the range is clear, and the weather is favorable for launch. With that being said, let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about the mission of United Launch Alliance and the Vulcan rocket.
At United Launch Alliance, we understand that reliable access to space is vital to our national security. For decades, missions launched on ULA's Atlas and Delta rockets have protected our troops, provided critical communications capabilities, and informed the intelligence community. Over more than 130 countdowns, we've mastered the technology and proven we have what it takes to put our nation's critical payloads into orbit. Now, it's time to go one step further, advancing American superiority in space. ULA is unleashing the energy of American ingenuity with the development of the Vulcan Centaur, a rocket purpose-built to meet all of the requirements of our national security space launch needs. Through partnerships with industry-leading companies, the Vulcan Centaur will deliver higher performance with greater affordability. When it comes to harnessing space for national security, ULA is getting the job done, building the Vulcan Centaur with state-of-the-art manufacturing technology and creating more capable and flexible launch pads. At ULA, we're building national defense for the next generation.
Just now, the teams just finished loading liquid methane and liquid oxygen onto the first stage of Vulcan. The teams will begin loading liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen onto Centaur, or the second stage of Vulcan. The payload on today's mission is a Landsat-6B satellite. Landsat is the longest-running Earth observation satellite program, providing remote sensing data to people all over the world. This has applications in agriculture, search and rescue, and so much more. The teams are continuing to track no issues on the launch vehicle or on the range, and the weather continues to remain favorable for launch. All systems are go, and we're tracking no issues on the launch vehicle.
Landsat has become one of the more common sets of remote sensing images. It was launched in July of 1972. That started the process of continuous observation of the land surface of the globe. It represents the longest running record of the landscape of the planet that's ever been recorded.
The Landsat satellites pass over the same place on the Earth every 16 days. Their orbit goes from pole to pole and they capture a new place, and then every 16 days they start to repeat that. And it's been doing so for 40 years now, continuously orbiting, collecting data.
NASA takes the lead on the development of all of the space hardware. They build satellites and they put them in orbit. Once they're in orbit, we collect and distribute the imagery and ensure that the data are preserved over the long term.
Working with satellite data is important because we can monitor the environment and how it changes over time in a very consistent way. We can quantify the dynamics, whether it's related to agriculture expansion, fire regimes, deforestation, urbanization, and have a record that allows us to relate those dynamics to the drivers, population or economic policy and what have you.
It's really kind of an underpinning of what we need to know to understand the health of the planet.
One of the really big stories of environmental change is the deforestation in the Amazon. This whole area here, if you go back to 1999, the vast majority of it is intact forest. And you can just see the herringbone roads come out through the forest, and then roads come out from those, and the land clearing and the forest disappearing.
The value of Landsat is in the use of the data. That means that the data have to be in the hands of users. In December of 2008, we completely rewrote our data policy to one in which all Landsat data were available to anybody without restriction at no cost.
So they opened up this archive, this treasure trove of data going back to the early 70s. We used to say we could only use the data we could afford, not the data we needed. Well, now we can have all the data.
The challenge, of course, isn't collecting the imagery as much as it is interpreting and applying those to problems, and that's simply a massive job.
And this is where the Google Earth Engine comes in. We have to have something like cloud computing to be able to analyze those data and quantify the changes. And Google provides the computing to match up and mine the archive. An example application with Google Earth Engine was done last December. We accessed over 50,000 images. We brought them in, we processed them with the cloud. If we had one CPU working on that, it would have taken over 3 years. We did about 15 hours.
I think the key to this partnership is that our data, being applied very creatively by Earth Engine activity, is really pushing Landsat to that level that we've all dreamed about over the years of its history. Landsat data are now in far more hands than ever before. When we start having simple-to-use tools that are proven, tested, and can be run by people with less training, then we'll make more progress. The Earth Engine promises to be that simple tool that many can use.
Fueling on the second stage of Vulcan is underway. All systems continue to trend nominally, the weather is still favorable, and the range remains clear. Once in orbit, Landsat-6B will be joining many other satellites that are part of the Landsat program. One such satellite is Landsat-8, which took off on February 11, 2013. Let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about the important work that Landsat-8 has been doing since it reached orbit.
When we investigate land cover using the instruments aboard Landsat satellites, we collect sets of data for different wavelengths. Some are in the infrared, and others correspond to blue, green, and red visible light. We can combine any three of the images to create different depictions of Earth's surface. What you're seeing now is a Landsat image of Florida, made with data from the blue, green, and red visible wavelengths. We call this a natural color image because it looks approximately like what we would see with our naked eye if we flew far above Florida. But we could choose data from other wavelengths and map them to blue, green, and red colors to highlight different features of the land surface. With this particular depiction of the multispectral data, for example, we can see much greater contrast between trees and shrubs in sawgrass marsh than was apparent in the natural color image. We call certain combinations of wavelengths false color images because they do not replicate what we see with the naked eye. Yet they allow us to create images where we can highlight or enhance different surface features. The following depiction approximates the type of image that you can get from color infrared film. It turns out that vegetation, growing active vegetation, reflects a lot of light in the near-infrared, and so areas with healthy growing vegetation jump out as red in these images. You can easily distinguish the healthy agriculture more clearly than you can in the true color image. Here you can look at the 3 different depictions of the multispectral data we used to create these images. And you can see how the surface cover appears different with some features enhanced in the different depictions.
With just under T-minus 8 minutes left in the countdown, fuel loading on the second stage is nearing completion. Taking a look at the events that are coming up in the countdown timeline, we have the second stage fuel loading should be completed around T-minus 4 minutes. At T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds, the launch director will poll the teams for a go or no-go for launch. At T-minus 2 minutes, the auto launch sequence will start. At T-minus 1 minute, the launch control system will be enabled. And at T0, ignition, release, and launch will occur, lifting the Landsat-6B satellite into orbit. All systems continue to remain nominal on the Vulcan launch vehicle as we continue to move through events towards launch. Pad lights enabled. Stage 2 fully fueled for flight. At T-minus 5 minutes and 23 seconds, the second stage, or Centaur, is fully fueled for flight. The next major event will be the go, no-go poll from the launch director as he polls the launch teams. Let's stand by for that starting at T-minus 4 minutes. Launch status check to proceed with the terminal count. Vulcan systems, go. Propulsion, go. Hydraulics, go. Pneumatics, go. CH4, go. LO2, go. Water, go. Centaur systems, propulsion, go. Pneumatics, go. LO2, go. LH2, go. Has-gas, go. Electrical systems, go. Airborne, go. Ground, go. Facility, go. RFFTS, go. Flight control, go. GCQ, go. Operation support, go. COM, go. Umbilicals, go. ECS, go. Redline monitor, go. Quality, go. Op safety manager, go. ULA safety manager, go. Vehicle systems, go. Anomaly chief, go. Range coordinator, go. Launch director, go. Mission director, you have permission to proceed with the terminal count. Roger that. Permission to proceed with the terminal count. T0 set for 2:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Launch auto sequence has started. T-minus 140. 130. T-minus 1 minute. Launch vehicle to internal power. Launch system enable. T-minus 50. 40. 30 seconds. Hold tanks at flight pressure. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff, Landsat-6B. Vehicle's following on trajectory. Beautiful onboard views. Program. Seeing good chamber pressures on BE4. Stage 1 performance is nominal. Stage 1 is following an all trajectory. performance is nominal. Seeing good chamber pressures on both the four engines. Next major event coming up will be payload fairing separation. That will happen when the launch vehicle leaves the Earth's atmosphere, so there's no need to encapsulate the payload with the fairings. Stage 1 continues to follow a normal trajectory. Standing by for payload fairing separation. We have confirmation of fairing separation. Stand by for BECO booster engine cutoff. Coming up very shortly. There's a view of the Landsat-6B spacecraft in space. And we have BECO. We have nominal state separation. We have pre-start on the RL-10, standby for ignition. We have ignition on the RL-10. Centaur is following a normal trajectory, seeing good engine performance from both RL-10 engines. Centaur is pitching over to align its apogee to the targeted orbit, which is 300 kilometers by 300 kilometers. Seeing good performance on Centaur. Next major event that will come up will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, the second stage on Vulcan. Centaur continues to perform nominally as it propels the Landsat-6B spacecraft into orbit. We have throttle down on Centaur. Stand by for MECO, or main engine cutoff, on the second stage of Vulcan. And we have MECO, main engine cutoff. We're now going to be coasting for a very short amount of time, about 6.3 minutes, before relighting the engine for a circularization burn. Welcome back to the live webcast coverage of Landsat-6B. We are standing by for engine relight of Centaur. This will be a 26-second long burn and will circularize the orbit of Centaur and Landsat-6B. Ignition. MECO, main engine cutoff confirmed. Stand by for the orbital insertion report from the guidance navigation controller. The guidance navigation controller has confirmed a nominal orbital insertion. We're now going to be coasting for 7 minutes before deploying the Landsat-6B satellite. Welcome back to the live webcast coverage of the Landsat-6B mission. You're looking at a live view looking down on Earth from the aft end of Centaur. We're coming up on the deployment of Landsat-6B from Centaur, coming up here at T plus 21 minutes. So that's just under 40 seconds from now. Deployment of Landsat-6B has been visually confirmed from Centaur. With that being said, that wraps up our mission for today. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this launch. And until next time, enjoy the view of Centaur floating away. Not Centaur, Landsat-6B, my bad.